Hello everyone, welcome to Catman's Week. You know, there's been a few evolutions of Catman's Week at this point. It started off as an expression of positivity to balance my content that used to be more negatively framed. Then I just started talking about whatever the fuck. Then it became schizo. Now I don't even know what the deal with it is. It's just scattered thoughts really. Just things I've been thinking about throughout the week. This week I started playing Balatro. I made a video about it. When I first started playing, it was just eating up all my time, but I've become a lot more reasonable with it now. Feels like I'm actually enjoying the game, and just playing it a little bit here and there, I've become a lot better too. I've had some wild runs, and I'm really seeing the potential for insane combos. It's quite fun actually. I've been listening to that new Old Sweatshirt album. I appreciate how he's more positive and optimistic nowadays. Feel it started in his music with his album Sick a few years ago. It comes off much more like mature, like he's just dealing with shit. I really like the song Infatuation. Gotta give a shout out to Deftones too. That was one of their best albums in a while. I watched Rope again yesterday. Oh, by the way, spoilers for Rope. I swear Rope is so silly, man. It's a great movie, but ultimately it's about James Stewart learning that murder is wrong, like it's some deep revelation. Hitchcock was definitely reading Crime and Punishment when he made this movie, because it uses a lot of those ideas. Like the characters believe that they are within the select few privileged enough to commit murder, but after they do it, Philip completely crashes out, and it reminds me a lot of Raskolnikov's delirium after he commits murder. It makes that same point about intellectualizing the immoral. You know, you might be able to get your theory to a point where it's logically sound on paper, but in practice it's gonna shake you up, because intellectualizing is playful, whereas the real act horrifies instinctively. The mental and emotional consequences of carrying out such an act are vastly underestimated due to the vanity of playing with such ideas. James Stewart, or Rupert rather, he really gets mocked the most, because he is the one that intellectualizes it the most. If you look at Brandon and Philip, Brandon seems to be more just bloodthirsty, like he's just a lunatic. And Philip seems to do it because he's insecure more than anything. He wasn't ready to do it in the same sense that Brandon was. But Rupert wouldn't ever act on his own theory. He would just intellectualize about it, use it to spark discussions that pleasure him and boost his ego. When he actually sees that his friends have put his thoughts into action, he is appalled and his ego shatters. His whole outburst isn't much like a righteous hero moment. It's more like one full of regret and self-loathing. Really, it's his vanity that is checked more than anyone's, because he's the one who most totally believes it. Philip regrets his crime straight away, and Brandon is just mental really. Rupert is the one who has been preaching this message most earnestly. I love the way this film is shot, where it follows people's gazes and lets you know the sort of realizations the characters are making. Especially Rupert, like when he realizes that Philip is freaking out about the rope that was used to strangle David being brought back into the room. The movie makes it explicit what people know without having to put it into words. Great performances from everyone in this film too. I've briefly mentioned stuff about this before, but I've recently had an awakening to how stark the censorship problem is in this country. And this was when I was seeing the protests against Palestine Action being labelled as a terror group. Now look, I ain't gonna talk much about Palestine Action because who knows, I might say something that leads to me being arrested. I will just state for the record, just to cover my own back, I do not support Palestine Action. But I don't know if they should be labelled a terror group, like I'll say that much. They've not done anything crazy. They've done bad things. They hit someone across the head with an iron bar or something if I recall correctly. All I'm saying is there's a big difference between supporting ISIS and supporting Palestine Action. I honestly wouldn't see it as a big deal if someone I know were to say they were supporting Palestine Action. Not me though, I disavow them wholeheartedly. Do not arrest me. Anyway, I say all this just to say that all those arrests of Palestine Action supporters were absurd, considering the extent of what they were doing. Just sitting down and holding up signs. I think you should be able to write whatever you want on a sign and wave it around, no matter how crazy it is. If something can be so completely dismissed as terrorism, just based on so little, then I feel like support for any group can be dismantled completely. You watch them videos and like old polio-ridden geezers are being arrested like they're a threat, and literal wheelchair-bound blokes as well. It really is ridiculous. It had me hating the police seeing that footage. And look, I don't hate any individual in the police, but I despise the police as a mindless agent that just enacts the will of the state and does what it's told. That's probably all it can be, but I hate it regardless. It took this long to click with me. I was hearing people say how bad censorship in this country was, but I guess personally I could never be sure. Seeing this shit convinced me though. I guess it's kind of old news at this point, but I've been dwelling on it. This is what I do, I dwell. And I have dwelled on it to the point I feel like I'm living in 1984. Obviously that's blown out of proportion. Censorship isn't that crazy really. But if you get arrested for saying something as simple as I support, it is a crazy fact that you're not allowed to do that by law. And it's worrying. The Online Safety Act never really made me worry, because while it was shit, it didn't really limit me personally. I don't watch porn, don't use social media like that really. And while I heard the people's cries and understood them, they never sunk in like that, because my life just seemed the same. But more so now, it's an accumulation of different things. It paints a more worrying picture and makes everything look pretty stark. I'll end the video with a more optimistic schizo thought. You know, they talk about there being a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But when you follow that rainbow, you can't ever get to the end of it. When you think about it though, if you're walking the path of the rainbow, that's treasure enough really. I mean, it's not like you're walking some spooky evil path through Mordor looking for some treasure. You're walking a path of glee and wonder and joy. Maybe the pot of gold was the friends we made along the way, the experience of it all. But beyond this, the rainbow and the pot of gold, it's been revealed to me that it's really just a metaphor, and actually it's quite an obvious one. The rainbow has 7 colours representing the 7 spheres or 7 vibratory levels. And then the pot of gold is the 8th sphere. And once you've penetrated the 8th sphere, that's when you've made it all the way to the end, or in this case, the beginning of things. The central point in which all has come from. We're all on the path of the rainbow. We're all returning to that centre of things. And we're climbing through the colours. We're travelling vertically through the rainbow rather than horizontally. Passing through each vibratory level. Right now we're like here. The pot of gold is here. And eventually we will all make it back into the pot of gold. This could just be gibberish to most people, but if you know, you know. I'll leave it at that. I think that's about it for this video anyway. Subscribe to the Catman Show, leave a like, leave a comment. Goodbye.